Really weird. I wasn't getting leave by mistake. He dissolved Parliament and then had new elections that were clearly rigged for his supporters. And when that happened, I mean, literally overnight, so he had this basically prepared. And once that happened, the July Revolution began. And the call was to the barricades again. What were the barricades? Well, they basically took everything they could to barricade the roads to make sure the king's army couldn't get through. And this is going to be one of the most famous paintings by Delacroix during this. It literally said the painting is to the barricades. And the painting of the 1830 election or revolution, one of my favorite works of art from this era, very romantic, showing revolutions. And once again, I mentioned it before, this concept of Lady Liberty's coming. And this is going to be workers, students, but also the new middle class of the Industrial Revolution that's just beginning. They're all calling for a republic.
Wouldn't that be
The bourgeoisie. Yeah.
I agree with the bourgeoisie.
And did I say the bourgeoisie?
No. I don't think not as good as the bourgeoisie.
So, are we done with the barricades? Oh no, there's many more barricades.
Isn't a movie about the July Revolution and barricades? There's a movie about that. Like it shows barricades and stuff.
That there could be. I know there's one 1848 and Les Miserables is about the 1848 one.
Yeah,
That's
that
barricades all over.
I just one also about the July Revolution too, but it could be that one.
Very well could be. I don't know it though. And so with that, and so basically as a compromise, Charles ran for his life and replaced with a cousin, Louis Philippe. And he would be called the bourgeoisie king. And basically the middle class king. And this is when they would begin the Industrial Revolution. There's a young Louis Philippe. And I put this up there because they made a big deal about it. No longer is divine right, not by the will of the people, not God. So the big thing about that is he's not divine right. So they're accepting that people have power. So this is a big step. Charles said, I am divine right, so I can do what I want. Trying to go back to that. Louis XVI kind of thing. And this revolution, that would trigger revolutions all over. When France sneezes, Europe catches a cold. All over. And with that, Louis got triggered by revolution. And so he became known as the Citizen King. But there's going to start to be many caricatures as he enjoyed the good life as a king and gained a lot of weight. And we'll explain that in just 1 second. This will soon be banned. And you'll notice a couple of things. First off, they went away from the Bourbon flag. Oh, I jumped the gun here. This is going to be basically the new business elite, upper middle class, bankers, businessmen. So the Industrial Revolution and the Financial Revolution that had begun in Britain is finally happening. And there was a magazine called Literature, and so that's where that comes from. And very conservative, and for the most part ignored the workers and farmers, ignored people in the countryside and people doing the work, but it still kind of has a vague idea that there's a General Assembly, a vague idea of civil rights. And, oh, I thought I put that in there. I guess I didn't say it. They did adopt the tricolor. They brought back that flag. They went to the Bourbon white flag with the little frogs on it and went to this.
The frogs? The frogs are back?
Yeah, the frogs.
I love
1832, there was a rebellion of workers, but it was crushed. So kind of an uprising. And what was the cry? To the barricades. Because I can remember in 1968, they actually banned cobblestone streets in France because they used them for barricades during the summer revolts of 1968.
How's barricades?
It's France. France is such an interesting country.
France.
Well, there's a magazine called La Caricature, and they were bitter critics of Louis Philippe, saying that basically he's gone against the ideas of rights and life, equality, and fraternity. And so they were known for making caricatures and satire of all sorts of events all over Europe. And Louis Philippe, they tried to say, no, you can't caricature me. The people love me. I'm the citizen king. And they said, it is very easy to draw from Louis Philippe's face, and within just 3 steps, you come up with a pear. A pear. Now that is a little cruel, but they banned it. And that's one of the first examples of censorship in the modern world. They banned this, and so that became why they always showed him like this.
No more pears?
And so for the rest of his life, they try to draw like, okay, you're going to censor us? We'll make him kind of look like a pear. We'll show you.
I thought that was a bird for at first.
And it has nothing to do with, he had no like pear-like abilities.
What abilities do pears have?
They're great at chess.
Okay.
Then in 1830, starting the next end of July, it went into Belgium. There was no Belgium, and all of a sudden now there's Belgium. Belgium was the old Spanish Netherlands, and they won their independence in 1830. There was an attempt to unify this area with the Netherlands. That was the Congress of Vienna's idea. But it failed, partially because they had been under different colonial rule. Spain and then Austria ruled this area. And also, Belgium's really divided, almost right down the middle of the country. And like literally overnight in 1830, it's like, oh, we need a country. Some people were talking about it. July Revolution hit, like overnight. And the Netherlands were like, well, we don't want you. You're too much trouble. And so in 1830, they won independence and made Brussels the capital. The problem is there are big cultural differences in Belgium. The North, Dutch and Protestant. Also urban and much more urban, much more trade oriented. South, French, and what religion? Catholic. And so to this day, they speak French here and they speak Dutch here. And you literally, like, if you drive across Belgium, you literally, like, it's like you cross a line and it's noticeable. And every once in a while, and it's happened a few times in the last 20 years, they talk about dividing Belgium up. And then they realize we really want 2 small ones, so they come back together.
What would you
The real question is, which Belgium invented fries? North or South Belgium?
Well, I'll tell you what, they're popular in both places. And they love the frites, and they just dump mayonnaise on them. Just dump it. And that's how they eat them.
Really?
So they have all these people that have little cups full of frites, fries,
And then put mayonnaise?
and they just dump mayonnaise.
Did you eat some?
Oh yeah.
Really good?
And the mayonnaise, I'm not used to that.
Okay.
But when you're there, it's
It's
you know,
fine.
I would never eat it here, but when you're there, it's kind of.
It's like fish and chips. You made that everywhere in
I still eat that here. Okay.
fish and chips.
Fish and chips, good stuff. That's how fish come.
With
Oh, by the way, if you go to England and you decide you want what we call in the United States potato chips, they will look at you like a dumb American. You say, I want chips. Those are frites. Those are crisps. Very good.
crisps.
So they would win their independence, and they, under a monarch, and they remain neutral. And they're going to be technically, everybody guaranteed Belgium neutrality.
Oh, yeah.
This will become an issue in a little thing called World War I.
And World War II.
But not to as much extent. Italy, it started at the fall of 1830, but really picked up in 1831 and 1832. Italy was divided up into little kingdoms and principalities. They wanted one Italy. No, we're not to pizza because we're not to 18th.
No, we lost the Italian.
Oh, I know. He sent me an email, though. He's doing well. He's in Kentucky.
Is it Kentucky?
His dad moved there, so.
Oh, yeah.
So, Giuseppe Mazzini, and there's a poetry stamp of Mazzini. This is in the 20th century. He formed a group called Young Italy. Young Italy, and others will copy it, including a place called Young Ireland. Young Italy was for one Italy. So the very disparate groups of Italy, and it's a big difference. Now, the Kingdom of Two Sicilies, Naples, there's a lot of cultural differences between here and, let's say, Sardinia and Lombardy and Milan. So they want one Italy. And these are Carbonari, these are basically kind of militia for independence. But Austria sent troops in under Metternich in 1832, crushed it. They crushed it. But this is going to lead to the idea of Italian risorgimento.
So our bully Alec was still here.
What does that mean? One Italy. Italy restored.
It sounds like a pasta.
It kind of does, doesn't it?
Almost always.
Every Italian word does sound like something that would probably be very tasty, you know. And the thing is, this is going to be the beginnings of Italian unification. And yes, we are coming to pizza.
Pizza. Yes.
The German states wanted independence. A German confederation was created by the Congress of Vienna, but had Austrian control. Metternich, these things called the Carlsbad Decrees, ruled it with an iron fist. And they tried to tamp it down. But there was more and more movement for German-speaking people to form their own country. This map is not a very good map. It just basically shows the Confederation. But if you look at this where the yellow is, and just cross out right here, that's very similar to the maps I grew up with in Europe. It's very much what West Germany is going to be. Just, wow, that's a 1980 map. I'm old.
How old are you?
Almost your age. So with that, university, it started in universities, but then spread to other liberal areas for a boom. What is a boom? Unification. And that's why the German Republic today is called the Bundesreich. Boom is unification. And their army, the Bundesmark, that's the German army. The Union army. Yeah. And so with that, but of course, Austria and Prussia crushed this. But nationalism is on the rise. It was a very disorganized, just a few groups marched in places like Hamburg and Frankfurt, but it's coming. They can feel it coming. And they've already picked the color of the new German flag.
Same as Belgium.
Yeah, it's a Belgium, you turn it.
Yeah, you flip it.
Yeah, this is the same flag for Belgium, but yeah, they're horizontal.
What flag came first? Germany or Belgium?
What came first?
Yeah, which flag?
Germany.
Germany.
Belgium copied. But it's a unified Germany, and yes, of course, copying the tricolors. Everybody copies the French.
Yeah, you don't want to be different.
No, we're not going to have crepe day.
No, it doesn't have a-
Does anybody wants to come in and make crepes? Can anyone make crepes?
I can make it. I make.
Okay, well, you just volunteered.
I got
All
it.
right, you've got a lot of work to do.
Let's have a Polish rebel. Do you get the point? There are
In the valley.
revolutions
In
all
that
over.
valley,
In the
right
valley.
there.
So, in this valley south of Krakow, a revolution began. Polish Revolution.
No, all 1830.
Yeah.
Poland was technically independent, but the Russians controlled it. And so a very disorganized group of old Polish nobility, a little bit of liberal university, like at Krakow, a big university, that's why it was on my head. Krakow's a really cool town. Road trip. But they were divided. There was no real, just we want independence, but no real unified leadership. And so the Russians crushed it. Under Nicholas, crushed it.
So did all these revolutions just kind of happen at the same time?
Yeah. All of them happen, you know, this, what an amazing time. And it's nothing compared to what's going to happen in 1848. 1848 was crazy. And there's going to be kind of a revolution here in the United States, in this very classroom. That's how I started teaching in this room. And in 1832, the remaining parts of Poland that were kind of independent became part of Russia. And so Poland, if you look at this map here, Poland will be divided between the Austrians, the Prussians, and Russia all the way up until 1919. Well, 1918, technically it's complex. But here's Poland and Poland. And Central Europe is just an interesting place. Here are the Russian cavalry, or this is supposed to be Polish cavalry beating back the Russians, even though, frankly, the Polish do it. You notice, you might see the red and white is going to be the two colors of Poland. And so those are the various revolutions. But what of Britain? Very quickly, Britain was going through their own industrial revolution. They did not have the revolution as much in 1848, but they're going to have it here. But there's going to be a group of very evangelical Protestants developing in Britain called the Methodists. And they're going to sweep through the United States. And the Methodists had a moderating influence on Britain that perhaps avoided the revolution. I've actually read a book where it said the Methodists made sure there'd be no revolution because they made people more accepting of the leadership. Don't complain here, you'll go to heaven. And in 1819, a workers' march in Peterloo, outside of London, demanding these basic rights, political and economic. And here's one of the sayings. This is from Act 5 of the, well, they took a biblical phrase from Acts 5, let us die like men and not be sold like slaves, talking about the working conditions in the factories. And they marched demanding rights, like voting rights and representation. And what did the British do? They sent in a regiment of cavalry. They unsheathed their swords and rode through and killed over 100 people.
Why? Why wouldn't you just shoot them?
Hmm?
Why didn't you just shoot them?
Me?
No, why
Why did
didn't
the British?
Yeah, why didn't you shoot them?
No, why did the British do this? Well, they did that partially to, they claimed to avoid indiscriminate gunfire, but the big reason was terror. We will run you down and hack you up and cut you to pieces and make you suffer. So this was the upper class taking, basically demanding acquiescence to the system. The Peterloo Massacre is going to have great effect on Britain for the next 150 years. Look what they're willing to do to keep their wealth and power. And so that is going to lead to a series of events in Britain that we will finish after we watch The Day the Universe Changed. What number? 7.
How many of them are there total?
There are 10 total, but we're going to watch 7 and 8.
What about
That's
nine?
it.
What
Then
about
we're
9
done.
and 10?
Why 8? Social Darwinism. 7, medicine.
Oh.
Because one of the big things that's going to end here would be a massive cholera epidemic. Cholera is going to come through. And no one knew why.
Wait, what happened? What about 9 and 10?
10 is more kind of a summary of them. I like it, but it doesn't quite fit in with the class. 9 is the big changes in science, especially after after World War I, with like quantum physics and then how science, the dramatic changes. And we're not going to watch that because we already watched a big part of that. Christian sent us a video with the Saturn V rockets. We basically know what happened. It's just time.
Very important.
It's good to see.
Thank
you for sending me that.
The decisive battle that we watched before.
We're doing a second battles.
We're done.
Second battles.
We can watch them again.
So, I'm making up the little project. I'm just going to throw this out. Yes, you can make a decisive battle. You can make it as film it.
Can I use video game technology?
Yes.
Can I use civilization video game technology?
Yes. You can use video game technology,
Civ 6.
but it's got to be 1800 now.
Yeah, no, yeah. Civ 6 was only to like post.
Because I have it, but I can't find it now. Years ago, someone did it using
What part of civilization? What? Oh, India?
Then they did D-Day.
Oh, they did D-Day?
And they did a whole, they made up like the whole, like talking to this story. And I think I jumped in with the big pockets and the pants.
I think they probably know. I know what game they probably do.
I don't know what game it was.
I think
The only video game I know is Pong.
Yeah, I think it was that.
Who's played Pong? Yeah, somebody. You haven't played Pong?
Pong is decisive battles.
You haven't played Pong?
Decisive battle.
Is that the game?
The paddle thing, you go back and forth.
The paddle and you pass the little ball back and forth.
I'm good. You should dress it up with that.
Don't try to look cool. I was a Pong. I remember that was you had to play quarters. You play Pong. It's a big deal.
A lot of money.
Yes.
Can I recreate the Battle of Waterloo using Pac?
You can what?
If you can tell the real story of it using Pac-Man, yes.
Pac-Man?
Yeah.
You can't look cool
There
while playing ping pong, or, I mean, tennis.
Others can't, I can do cool.
Okay, how can you look cool when you're just chasing after a ball?
You got a valid point. It really depends on your what clothes you have. And I'm kind of a fashion maven. Okay, so with that, library? Library! Everyone else have a good day. I'll see you tomorrow. What are we doing tomorrow? How many times? You didn't sleep tonight?
How many times does the universe change?
Yes.
The universe is
7 so far.
Someone invented time travel. They're just from the future and they suck.
You don't know what to do with it. See you tomorrow.
I'm Mr. Carchurch.
Bye.